happy to entertain questions from the committee on that, and looking forward into those tools as well. So we will start with annexation. There are 5 types of annexation, and it is a process which the unincorporated area of the township is actually incorporated into a neighboring city or village. This process is governed by the Ohio Revised Code 709. And one of the important things that everyone needs to remember is that land must be contiguous to the municipality for the annexation to take place. The other thing that everyone needs to remember is that annexation is a landowner driven process. So it is not something that a city comes in and says, we're going to annex that land. It is something where a landowner says, I would like to annex the land. And they do that by filing a petition with the Board of County Commissioners, who will review and take action on the annexation. So we're going to review the different types because, as I said, there are 5 of them and they all have different nuances to them. So there are 3 types of expedited procedures. All of the expedited procedures require the petition to be signed by 100% of the landowners seeking annexation. So if there's 5 properties to be annexed, then all 5 landowners have to sign that petition. If it's 100, then it's 100 landowners. In an expedited annexation, there are certain technical requirements that have to be met. When those technical requirements are met, then the Board of County Commissioners really do not have any rights to say no to that annexation. So with that, I want to make sure we understand the 3 different types of expedited annexations. The first one is where the township and the city both agree to take in the property. So a landowner says, I want to be annexed. They approach both the city and the township, and by resolution and ordinance, they accept and say, go ahead, we're going to agree to the commissioners approving this. There is no right of appeal by any party under a type 1 annexation. A type 2 annexation is the type of annexation that you hear me talk a lot about. It is the type that is used most frequently. And it is with, you do not have to have the consent of the municipality or the township. Again, certain requirements have to be met. It's mostly technical stuff. Is the legal description included? Do the boundaries of that legal description close? It's technical stuff that gets signed off at the county level. There is no hearing required by the Board of County Commissioners. And actually, there is no hearing at all. Even if they wanted to have one, there wouldn't be one. And there is no right of appeal. So if the annexation petition meets those technical requirements, the Board of County Commissioners must approve the annexation, and not the city, not the township, not a surrounding landowner cannot appeal that to the courts.
Molly, could you go into show mode with the PowerPoint?
Oh, I'm so sorry. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
The 3rd type of annexation is a significant economic development project.
Part of the slides are like.
No,
No?
No,
no, they
Well,
are.
the text, so they're right.
Yeah, the text on the right side, the text on the slides.
Like because of the.
Well, you have to go back out and show.
I'll have to go out and show them.
You just when you close some of the stuff at the top.
Yeah. I won't see that work.
And close the side, the left side.
Where are these spelled out at? What's the regulation? What's the regulation that we can be?
709.
There you go. There you go.
Got it? Okay.
Did you close the preview page?
Yeah, I'm getting. So there I am, so. Scroll back one.
No, let's scroll more to the other,
As in-
your whole screen does not show up on this.
Right there.
Not even doing it. Okay, all right, I'll leave it alone now. All right. So the third type of annexation is a, significant economic development project. Again, there's no right of appeal if all the parties agree. And if the city and township object, there will be a hearing held. And after the hearing, if the annexation is rejected, only the property owners of the petition can appeal it, so not surrounding property owners. The next type of annexation is what's called the regular annexation. This is the one that you used to see before the laws changed back in the early 2000s. This was really the only annexation that was available back then. This is the kind of annexation that property owners can actually be pulled into an annexation when they don't want to be part of the annexation as well. This type of annexation only requires 51% of the property owners of the area to be annexed. To sign the petition that's being submitted to the Board of County Commissioners. This includes notification requirements to the landowners within and adjacent to the area to be proposed for the annexation, and the commissioners are required to hold a public hearing. And then the other important part of this is that the decision of the commissioners can be appealed, and that's pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 25.2506, which is the standard appeal process. Own land. That land must be contiguous to a municipality. So I give the example of the city of Columbus owns the reservoir. However, it is not contiguous to the city of Columbus right now. But if that were to be contiguous to the city of Columbus, this type of annexation could be utilized to annex that portion into the city. And then that would make a larger portion of the township contiguous to the city of Columbus. So just be aware of that type of annexation. As far as once, you start thinking about annexations and see them occurring, there are different ways that you can work with landowners to try to move the annexation in the direction that helps different parties. So annexation agreements are allowed under 709.192. And these are areas where, a township could talk to landowners and ask them to sign an annexation agreement, of not requiring or allowing. They could talk to a municipality about signing an agreement to not annex. So the annexation agreements are between the municipality and the trustees of one or more townships. And the Ohio Revised Code does allow those agreements to outline areas to be annexed and areas not to be annexed. They also allow for a lot of different types of things such as payment in lieu of taxes and, different ways for you to negotiate between, the township and the municipality to make sure that things can continue into the future, for the township. A specific type of annexation agreement is called a cooperative economic development agreement. This is ORC 701.07. It is specifically to identify areas that where a city will annex and where a city will not annex, where certain zoning will take place, where it'll have agreements about the different types of services that a city would provide and a township would provide. It outlines all of those different requirements. I've actually been on the participating side of one of these agreements when I worked at Violet Township. We had and it still exists today, a CETA agreement between Violet Township and Canal Winchester. And the way that worked is along the Basel Western corridor in Violet Township. There are certain areas where they both agree, one, it's gonna be the city, or one, it's gonna be the township. And it talks about who's gonna provide the water and sewer, because both the county have water and sewer there and Canal Winchester has water and sewer there. They talk about who's going to do the roadways. So right now, DHL is building a huge facility there along with a number of other fulfillment centers along Basel Western Road. And they've worked through their CETA agreement to identify how those roadway improvements are going to be paid. And they've worked in conjunction with their port authorities and their the transportation improvement districts. So they have coupled all of these different tools together to help create a development plan for that area. The other thing that they have in that area is shared, well, I shouldn't say shared, they each have their own zoning code. But they have a CETA zoning district that is specific to the CETA area. And they have a CETA land use committee that was responsible for creating the initial CETA land use zoning. And then when it got to a certain point, then they said, okay, this zoning looks good to us. Then they took it to the township zoning process and the city zoning process and got it adopted into each of those legislative bodies. Now, when development happens in that corridor, if it's in the township, or if it's in the city, it's all under the same type of zoning. When something gets submitted within that corridor, it goes to the CETA Land Use Committee first, and that includes representatives from the township and from the county as well, township and the city, as well as county regional planning commissions on that board as well. And that body is an informal group giving an informal recommendation back to the township or the city, depending upon which community that property is located in. And then once they give that recommendation to that community, then they take it through their normal zoning process, and then the township and the city have the final say. But they work very well together and making sure that that corridor is cohesive. They also share revenue in that as well. There's a percentage of revenue that they generate from income taxes on the property that's annexed in the city that the township gets. And then they're also layering it with JEDs and TIFs. The JEDs are to generate the income tax for the township, and then the TIFs are to offset infrastructure costs, which we're gonna get into those tools in a minute, but they're layering all these together to help move everything in a cohesive manner. So the other thing I've heard, and I'm just kind of going through these tools and different ways of cooperation. The other thing I've heard regarding other options for the township is, can we incorporate ourselves as just a village? And that process is defined in ORC 707, and it's actually something that we looked at several months ago to see if it was something that we could do. There is a process. The biggest thing I want to state here is that, there has to be, a statement from, every community that is within 3 miles of your township, saying that they are not going, or that they're okay with you incorporating as a village. And most of the time, it's very difficult to get those letters, from those communities. So the very first thing that we did, is we created a very informal map. But we created a map that shows, the 3 mile radius of every municipality with near Harlem Township. And you will see that the green area is the only area that, is not affected by that 3 mile requirement. So the next thing you have to look at from there is the density requirements. The Ohio Revised Code says that you have to have a minimum of 800 people per square mile, and you have to have a minimum of 2 square miles. So when we looked at the density within those areas, we could not get to those density requirements. So I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that we did do that analysis at when we were looking at all these different tools. The other tool that has come up in conversations lately with me is, could the township do limited home rule? The answer is yes. It's a township that has to have a population of at least 2,500, which you have. If you're less than 5,000 in population, you have to appoint a township administrator. You also have to have estimated resources of at least 3.5 million, which I believe you guys would qualify for, that you would have to appoint a township administrator. If you have a population less than 5,000, the only way to adopt home rule is by an initiation of a petition signed by 10% of the electors, with a, from the numbers of the past general election, and then it would go on your next general election, after it's certified by the trustees and given to the Board of Elections. So with limited home rule, there are a number of things that communities can do. They can incur a higher percentage of net indebtedness. They can supply water and sewer services to users within the incorporated area of the township. They can adopt emergency resolutions that take effect immediately. And then the 2 biggest ones that I see are adopting building codes, or other codes that are state codes. So you can't go out and create your own code, but if there's like an Ohio building code that you want to adopt, you can do that under limited home rule. And then you can also adopt standards regarding soil erosion and water deprivation from non-farm development. Again, my experience in Violet Township is they were limited home rule. I did not see any major differences between them and other townships in my experience, other than that they did adopt the state building code and have their own building inspector. So instead of sending everything to the county, they did it themselves. They also have a drainage erosion sediment control program. It's known as the DESC program. And they contract with the Soil and Water Conservation District in Fairfield County. And every time a non-residential development goes in, there is an agreement that has to be signed between the developer, landowner, and the township. And it basically outlines all of the drainage requirements that they have to meet within the township. And then it's administered at the township level through the Soil and Water does it on contract for the township. So those are the 2 biggest things I've seen with limited home rule. You do have to have a law director if you're limited home rule. So the township would have to appoint someone. I know with Violet Township, they just contracted with the prosecutor's office. So instead of just getting a prosecutor, as your attorney, and they had to contract with them because they were no longer just a township, they were limited one role. Same with police, you have to have your own police force, so they contracted with the sheriff's office. So it was the same services, they were just paying for them. So that's limited home rule. So the next thing I wanna roll into is zoning, just to kind of give everyone an understanding of the different zoning that we've worked with the township so far. And why we have done this type of zoning. So you have probably heard us talk about overlay zoning. It is a type of planned unit development established under Ohio Revised Code 519.021C. It's often referred to as the cloud zoning, and it typically applies to a defined area. The reason we call it the cloud zoning is because the zoning actually goes into place when the trustees adopt that zoning text and zoning map. However, the existing underlying zoning continues to operate until such time the applicant pulls down the cloud. So this is a district that a lot of communities are utilizing along transitional areas because it allows those communities, residents to continue to live in their property under their existing zoning if they choose not to develop. So benefits to this is that it provides more densities that are more comparable to the adjacent municipalities. You've probably heard me say before that there are two reasons why landowners choose to annex, and usually those are to obtain water or sewer services. And the second one is to obtain better zoning than what a township can offer. So by putting in these overlay districts, you can increase your densities to a density that's comfortable for the township, but is more in line with the surrounding communities, municipalities, to help reduce that likelihood of annexation. The zoning then can also be included with development standards that reflect the community character that you as a township want to see. So for example, the overlay districts that we've done for the township include 200-foot buffers, woodland buffers for trees within that 200 feet. Architectural standards to reflect the rural character and those sorts of things. So it allows you to set those expectations. And it also provides predictability to landowners, developers, and the township. And one thing with these overlay districts is that we typically couple them with other economic development tools. So overlay zoning is usually the first step moving forward to help protect a community from annexation. And the first thing that we typically look at is a couple of different tools. One is a joint economic development district. This is a tool that allows the municipality to work with, allows the township to work with an adjacent municipality to develop the land for commercial or industrial purposes. And it doesn't have to be immediately adjacent to the community. A JED can be with a community that has one intervening community within it or between it. So just because it's not immediately adjacent doesn't prohibit you from working with them on a JED. It allows the township to generate an income tax that it normally would not be able to generate under state laws. So when you enter into this JED agreement with the adjacent municipality, you can assess the income rate of the municipality you're partnering with. You cannot set it higher than what they have, but if they have a 2% income tax, then you can set the income tax at 2% for the JED area. What is nice about the JED is that it is specific to that JED area. So it's not going to apply an income tax to the township as a whole. So it would be specific to that JED area, and it would be specific to all the new businesses coming in. So existing businesses or existing residents, within that area would not be, assessed the income tax. The JED law was modified in 2021 to allow certain opt-out measurements. And then, there's also, certain information that has to be within the JED contract regarding infrastructure. And, you would also have to talk to the water and sewer districts within the area when you're creating these, JED agreements. What the other nice thing about a JED is that it does prohibit the contracting party from annexing, with it for a period of 3 years. Now, if you're partnering with a community that has one intervening community between you, you're probably not threatened by annexation by them, so that's probably not a big deal. But if it is an adjacent community, it would, prohibit that 3 years. The other thing is that, it by default, typically deters, annexation. Because, even if it's not, even if you're partnering with a community that's adjacent, it deters it because once that JED income tax goes into place, if a community wants to come and annex over top of that, that JED income tax does not go away. So the income tax of the community that's annexing would apply in addition to the income tax of the JED. So you'd have two taxes for those properties. So because annexation is a landowner driven process, landowners typically do not choose to annex once they're part of the JED because they don't want to income taxes. The JEDs also can serve as annexation agreements. So we're working with another township right now that does have an annex, has a JED with a community that is adjacent to it. And in that JED agreement, it defines where that community will annex and where it does not annex. So similar to ACETA, a JED agreement can do that as well. So keep that in mind as well. And then the revenue is divided between the township and the municipality, and you negotiate that between the two communities. Typically what we're seeing now is if the municipality is not providing any services at all, it's more or less like a 90-10 split. So 90% goes to the township and 10% goes to this municipality. And that 10% is typically covering, they're just getting that for being in the bank. So a lot of times these municipalities do like to do these because it's pretty easy money, for them. So, if there's not, if you have a community that's not adjacent to you and doesn't want to annex or doesn't have interest in that, they are usually very interested in doing an annexation agreement. A JED agreement with you, to, get that money in a pretty easy way. The other thing is, that it cannot apply, the income tax cannot apply to residential property unless it's part of a mixed use development. So if you have a mixed use area like we do on the south side of the township, those mixed use, the residents in those mixed use areas could be assessed the income tax, but otherwise, it would not apply. So like in the cluster residential area, where it is strictly residential, you would not do a JED in that area, because you do not have the commercial components to it.
So I have just a general question.
Can we hold the questions to the end?
Sure.
So this is just an example, that I've taken off of the state auditor's, website. Regarding a JED that is nearby to you, Berkshire Township. It's City Delaware, is their partner at 1.85%. I pulled the 2020 numbers. They generated $392,000 approximately, in that, particular year. The way that was distributed, they were a little bit, they weren't that 90-10, they were more split. So municipality actually got more than the township, so that's why it's important that you understand what you're negotiating when you are talking about a JED. And if the municipality is providing services, maybe it makes sense to let them have more of that. But if they're not providing services, making sure you're negotiating, so the township gets what they are providing out of that. But once, you generate those funds, then the township can take those funds and utilize it, pretty much in a lot, very unrestricted ways. So that's what's nice about the JED is that there's not a ton of restrictions to it for the township once that money is generated and put into their general fund. The other option, that is similar to a JED, that has a little more flexibility to it, is the new community authority. And this is probably the area where, the cluster residential area, if you were gonna do something in that area, it would probably be a new community authority. Because you can do these on residential property. They are used to encourage the orderly development and well-planned, diversified and economically sound communities. They are public-private partnerships. And it requires cooperation between the developer and, the county commissioners and the trustees, to help move these forward. The NCA can assess a development charge, and that can be in one of three different ways. So the first way is very similar to a JED. It can be an income tax on everybody within the NCA, including residents. So that's where it's different from a JED, but the income tax part of it is very similar. The other way, and it was probably the more popular way or more common way that I see NCA's done, is through the assessment of a property tax. So it's basically, it's called a development charge, but it's very similar to your property tax. So we'll see like 9 mills added to, or 5 mills added to the property tax for everyone that's within that new community authority. Again, hence the word new, it only applies to everyone that's in that area, in that NCA, those that are new, that are coming into the community. It's not for those that are living there today. So again, that's a way to help those that are coming to the community pay their way into the community. The third way that an NCA can charge is on retail sales. So you could actually have a sales tax in it. We actually, like, I think the Berkshire one does because they have outlet malls. So there's also, I believe, an NCA on Easton. So there's a little increase in sales tax there. But that, if you have a retail area, you can put that sales tax, or you could put a charge on the hotels, etc. A new community authority can issue bonds, so that's always something to keep in mind as you're looking at infrastructure going forward. And the way a new community authority is established is actually by the developer. And they petition to the Board of County Commissioners. The county commissioners must hold a hearing, and there are notice requirements that are required for proximate communities. The Ohio Revised Code defines what proximate communities are. But it's typically whatever community in which the new community authority is being created. But there are different ways to do different types of proximate communities. The law was recently changed that would allow townships to create their own NCAs if you're 5,000 or more in population. You guys don't quite need it. So yours would still have to go through the Board of County Commissioners to get approved. And then that would take place after a public hearing. And then this is an example of the North Star NCA. 9 mills has generated in 2021 $229,000-ish for that NCA. So what's nice about it, when I said there are bonding authorities, you can utilize that funding to bond, to secure the bonds. And then utilize that to pay down the debt, to pay the debt service payments. So it is a way to generate funding for the infrastructure as well. And then the last tool I want to touch on is tax increment financing. This allows the community to invest in infrastructure and other improvements to pay for them by capturing the increase in the property tax that's generated by the development. So what happens is you have your dollar amount that is assessed by the auditor's office for the assessed value for the property today. And then the developer comes in and says, I'm gonna build X. And then once they build it, the auditor assesses the property at a higher value. And the difference, the increment between the newly assessed value and the previous, the current assessed value, that difference is diverted away from the taxing authorities and put into a TIF fund that is funding specifically for that project, for the public improvements within that project. They can be bonded and that money can be utilized to pay the debt service. The developer could provide the funding up front for the infrastructure and then be paid back by the TIF payments. So there's different ways that you can structure the TIFs. There's also one that the township can do fairly easily. We're doing one right now for a township, 75-25 10-year TIF, no school district approval required. So it's a simple piece of legislation. You identify your school districts in your township, and then we can pass that as a township trustees. There are other ways to get higher diversion, so you could get 90%, you get 100%, all going into that TIF. But you would have to include your school districts and other entities in the negotiation of that, and typically requires payment in lieu of taxes by the landowner to the school district. So it really depends upon how much you want to negotiate and how fast you want to do stuff. A lot of townships are starting to do these 75-25 10-year TIFs because if they get in ahead of a municipality, it's kind of a deterring factor from the municipality annexing it. You already have that control of the TIFs. So this is a spreadsheet that we have of an analysis that's been done elsewhere. And having the market value of that was assessed once the project was completed. And then the original assessment has your effective rate, and then down the side is the actual tax rate. And then it shows you the percentage of the tax that goes to the different entities. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll. It's just gonna leave it that way. All right, it shows the percentage that goes to each of the entities. This is the 100% tax. This is the 10-year total that they would have gotten. This is the 25% that each entity gets. And then this is the amount, 75% that's being diverted to the TIF fund to pay for the infrastructure, generating about 13.5 million. This is on a 230 unit multifamily on 19.2 acres. So you'll see that this example generates quite a bit of funding to pay for public infrastructure within that project. One thing that we see is making sure that the township insured of the TIF agreement is ensuring that those taxes or the TIF funds are going to public improvements, and making sure that's clearly defined in the legislation for the TIF as well. So with that, that's what I have for economic development, zoning, annexation, those various tools. I do have two other slides regarding transportation information that I've learned over the last week or so that I'm happy to share with. I don't know if you want me to do that. Go right into that, or you want to open it? Absolutely.
We're gonna just go ahead, we're gonna, Holly, thank you for the presentation. We're gonna open up to questions of Holly on the presentation. We're strictly just this presentation. That's all we're discussing tonight. So if anybody has any questions in regards to this of Holly, you had one right at.
Yeah. So for the landowner initiated annexation, does the property have to be adjacent to the city they are annexing to?
Yes, and for the type 2 annexation, it's 5% contiguous to the property municipality to which they're annexing.
Thanks, that was it.
5% of what?
Of the area to be annexed, 5% of that has to be contiguous.
Okay.
Yes,
So I don't, this is about this, but kind of what we talked about before, so if it's not appropriate, let me know, but we talked about the zoning overlays this time last year. And then the merger came up, what happened with the zoning overlay plan that then drove us to talk about the merger piece?
we're. We really want to just keep it here.
Okay,
That's for a different,
okay,
or you and I can talk privately. if you'd like.
okay, thanks.
What's a jib and a tiff?
I'm sorry.
A jib, she keeps saying jib,
JED,
Yeah,
Joint Economic
the
Development District.
okay,
tip was the last, the one of the last. one.
yes, the JED is where the municipality and the township can partner to levy an income tax on the area identified within the JED. A TIF is tax increment finance, which is where you can take a percentage of the funding of the property tax of the new. Start over. You take the initial value of the property and you take the new value of the property with development, and the difference between those two are they converted into a fund, and then those funds are utilized for public infrastructure.
And you might have covered it, but the JED also needs private property owner consent.
Correct, yes, yes,
So the TIF, the township can do on their
Yes.
own. Yeah, JED and.
Correct.
JED and NCA.
correct,
Or
yeah,
annexation.
are all,
Property.
yep.
I have one online here.
Okay, sure.
Can an entire township become an NCA and do NCAs effectively block annexation?
So there is a theory that you can start an NCA and keep amending it as the property owners want to join in. But to just identify the entire township as an NCA would take every person, every property owner agreeing to that. It's a property owner initiative. But there are areas that I know where they are trying to do large NCAs and we're starting small. And then they're trying to amend them to grow larger. And the second part of that was, does it effectively block annexation? It does, because there are charges that are assessed within that NCA that when you annex in, you're gonna have that double taxation again. And then also usually you have the infrastructure and the zoning with the NCA, which are the two things that typically people usually go to annexation for. So yes, effectively it does.
Back at the beginning, you listed the 5 types of annexation, and one of them included in it, I can't remember which class it was. But a territory made up of 10 properties only needed 5 people, 5 of the owners to agree. How is that territory how does that come about? How is that created?
So that is, if there's somebody who wants to annex, let's say that they have an area they're identifying for future development. they've identified that area. If they can go and get 51% of the property owners within that area to sign the petition, then they could file that with the Board of Commissioners. But I caution you on this one, we don't see this one happening a lot.
I understand that, but it's. We're dealing with possibilities,
Mhm.
but, so as I understand it, then somebody, a developer could go around and contact 10 property owners, 6 of them agree. So he creates this territory for the,
Still has to be contiguous to the
well,
community.
but,
Yeah.
yeah. And that the developer or what entity would create this territory, I guess.
It could be, really, I mean, it could be landowners coming together and then pulling other landowners in, it could be a developer talking to different landowners. It could be, as long as you have 51% of those landowners sign the petition,
So they could have every other property and the ones in the middle would be SOL.
I have to go through a hearing. It's not as fast and it's not as easy as the other annexation.
Just to clarify on that, that's 51% of the number of landowners, not 51% of landowners that control, or not the land, over half the land or control of a given area. It's not by acreage, it's by.
It's by the number of lots and owners of those lots.
That was my question.
Dutch has another one.
Oh, okay, sure.
So when in a couple of these instances in the first 5, you talk about the Board of Commissioners. I assume that's the county commissioners?
Correct.
So in a case of where, say for instance, somebody in Delaware County wants to have their property annexed by Columbus, would be Franklin County. Which Board of Commissioners has the,
Delaware County, because it would be property in Delaware that's being.
One more bit, go back.
Yeah, Holly, on the zoning overlay, has the township started working on specific changes to the zoning code for planned development?
So we have adopted, the township has adopted 3 overlay zones already. Have, do you want to put those up? I told her to have those ready. So the blue area along Fancher Road is the mixed use overlay district. The red area is what we refer to as the cluster residential overlay district. And then along South County Line Road, the different colors there are also mixed use. That includes some industrial type uses along the 37 corridor.
But do you have specific zoning code changes for each of these districts?
Yes, and they're already adopted and into the town.
So you have planned development and open space and
Yes.
everything.
Yep, and architecture. For example, in the red area, the clustered residential, it's 50% open space that's required.
The gray area is just still the way it's always been.
Correct. Yep.
Right here.
This is very good, because I don't know anything about this kind of stuff, and everyone else seems to have some knowledge about this. It's all of this stuff, did you kick the tires of all these things prior to the merger conversation? Or I almost like this might be, hey, this isn't going so well over here, so let's suggest maybe some of these things over here. That's,
No, well, like I said, we're
Yep.
stay on.
Yep.
Yes, we can.
So I guess along those lines, will there be another meeting that we can kind of ask other questions that aren't in particular to this presentation?
We don't know yet. Keep telling you to hold on, go ahead.
Oh, my question was just back related to the CETA. You talked about, or was the NCA, the one you said to keep growing.
NCA.
Does the NCA boundary have to be contiguous or can there be like islands?
That is not a question that I've had a straight answer from anyone on yet. I think that we're still learning on that one.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll find out if it's challenged, I guess.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, first question is this presentation online? I'm sure.
It's not yet. but-
This presentation will be online as a Zoom posted to the YouTube Township site, probably in the next day or two. And we will also try to get a copy of the PowerPoint because it's much clearer to read than what it is on the Zoom, to post it out as well to the township website.
So the options such as to incorporate as a village, that is an option so that annexation doesn't go through, let's say, or impedes annexation.
Sorry.
Well, so I just want to make sure that to incorporate as a village was presented as an option to prevent annexation from occurring.
We analyzed, that's what this drawing, this map is. We analyzed it and we were not able to meet the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code to incorporate.
Correct, not yet, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't down the road, because granted, any of these things are gonna take a little bit of time, so if you get 800 people for basically for 640 acres, so 1,600, you need 800 people per square mile. That's 800 people per 640 acres, so that's 1,600 people for roughly 1,300 acres. If you actually plan to do something like that around Central Village or some other area where there's a concentration of people, and you incorporated a developer who would work with you to perhaps promote and do that type of development to the specifications that the township outlines, then in fact, you might be able to get the critical mass become an incorporation as a village. No reason to say you couldn't.
I would say that if the reason you would incorporate would be to help prevent annexation, if that was what your question is.
Right, but what you're saying is that you crossed it off the list.
What I'm saying is I looked at it and said we couldn't do it today, is all I said.
Right, well, don't discard that.
I didn't say we were.
Think that are good possible.
Who else had a question back here? Somebody has that.
I was just gonna ask if the township was revisiting some of those options discussed now.
We'll see if we're going forward. At this point, that's all I can tell you.
I can't say that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's up to the trustees, not.
Yes, but
So in that example that he talked about with, well, you only need 800 more people, you work with a developer. But those 800 people have to be here before you can apply to be a village. Is that, it's not a betting on the if come. It's not, you build it and they will come. You have to have it in order for it to do that. Okay.
It's fine. Yes.
all right, go ahead. We'll bring it back to the committee.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Holly and Molly.
Any planning or discussions on the presentation or anything we need to bring forward?
I have a question.
Righty.
I mean, the only comment I would make about that kind of density is that it might exist in the township now at Westerville Estates only. And that the rest of the township is far from that kind of density. So far that I think it's not a realistic.
Sewer the driving, sewer and water is the driving.
So theoretically, you could say we could become a village. Practically, by the time we did that, we'd be caught up.
Before we go into anything else with the committee, if you want to show those couple other slides.
Yep.
Which is what I was trying to.
Yes, it was. I guess you should say it.
Let me get back so I can share my screen.
How is that Westerville Estate zoned?
It's owned by
So I think this is in Dallas, Texas.
Zone.
What's it zone?
Yeah.
Residential.
So I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention, that the Licking County Transportation Improvement District, had a meeting of the, 20-mile work, no, the 10-minute working group. They have a 10-minute working group, 20-minute working group, and a 30-minute working group. I was invited to the 10-minute working group for the different, engineers and planners for the area. And they reviewed, they reviewed a rather lengthy PowerPoint that I'm not going to go into. I'm going to go into 2 slides with you. This is the first one, just that outlines various projects that have received some kind of different type of funding to either study or do construction of different projects. The one I really want to point out to you is number 12. Which is the study that ODOT is conducting from 161 over to 71 along 37. So that is a study that will be looking at what type of improvements are needed to help move traffic along that major corridor. And I know that has some effect on the township. I know it just is a little bit of corner of your north east corner, but I think it's something that you do need to keep your eye out on as that study moves forward. County Line Road is also of interest to this township, so that is kind of that number 10 area. They are looking at 3 different roundabouts that do have some type of funding tied to them for some portion of design or construction at some different levels. So those 3 different roundabouts are 37 and County Line Road, Duncan Plains Center Village, County Line Road, and then Fancher and County Line Road. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, and then also wanted you to be able to see. I pulled up the wrong. Yep, let me stop sharing and get out and pull the one that has the other slide in it. This was another topic of conversation at this meeting. County Line Road is the teal dash line running north and south on the left side of your screen. You'll see Fancher Road in Licking County labeled, and then you'll see Beach Road off to your south. The Licking County Transportation Improvement District is looking at different ways to make better connections to County Line Road from Intel. So they are looking at either a Fancher Road extension coming through farmland and then connecting into Green Chapel, or they're looking at a Beach Road realignment through some farmland and then connecting straight into the north, straight shot north to 37. So these are not things that are funded right now. These are strictly ideas that are being kicked around. But I wanted you to be aware of it as a community, that those discussions are taking place, because I know that they will have impact on the township.
That's basically either of those 2 bypass roads, either Beach Road or Green Chapel Fancher Road, would feed into South County Line Road. And that is, I guess, the best ideas on the table right now from the traffic engineers, which would turn South County Line Road on the edge of the township into a major north-south thoroughfare. And that's more than likely going to happen pretty quickly. And that's where the 3 roundabouts are already being constructed.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, I live on Fancher. I vote no on 1 and 3.
Did Delaware County participate on the idea on East County Line Road?
Yes, and they prefer the beach, road, realignment. And they, indicated that they'd be willing to participate in maybe facilitating that project.
Did they give any reason why they prefer that?
They said that it would, be able to, better align into Harlem Township to open it up for economic development purposes.
If somebody else is trying to get in.
I want to move. Yeah, the deck's clear. They're all in. 25 are in.
Theoretically, it says that an option, it could do both.
I don't think they'll do both.
Oh,
I
okay. It just says that
Yeah.
alternative to both connections.
And the detailed discussion was that the improvement from both not be significantly better than the improvement from one over the other.
Oh.
Yeah, so they consider it as an alternative, but it's not one that's being considered.
One final kind of question or more comment about the presentation. I think we did a little bit of a deeper dive in this like last year during our two community meetings. But can you perhaps talk about how like land assemblage works and how annexations kind of are pieced together, the way that what happened in Jersey Township when New Albany annexed all in Princeton?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's necessarily equivalent to what Jersey and New Albany, but one thing I think is worth mentioning here is that you can, in order to meet that 5% requirement, you can do a single family bowling alley lot, annex that in, and then that gets you a little bit further, and then do a little bit more, and then start ballooning out from that little tiny bowling alley lot. So having some bowling alley lots that align your southern border doesn't protect you from annexation, because it just takes one of those lot owners to say, yeah, I'll sell to a developer to help balloon that out to annexation. So that's the biggest concern. As far as Jersey and New Albany, they were more of that economic development. So it's a little bit different of a situation.
Okay.
You want to use Trenton Township as an example, though?
Yeah, I mean, Trenton Township has seen 1,000 acres in the last several months be annexed into Sunbury. It has gone very, very fast. We started working for them 3 or 4 months ago, and 1,000 acres has disappeared since we started working with them. It's just, they were able to get it piecemeal, and once one went, it just dominoed effect down, and now it's 1 lot away from Harlem Township. Some 1 lot away from Harlem Township.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that if you stand on Trenton Road in Harlem Township on the west side of Miller Paul, you're looking at Sunbury. There's all those fields up there.
Have they announced what their zoning amendments?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, they zoned them all light industrial. And if you look at their listing of what light industrial is, it's way more extensive than what our list is. Ours is pretty good. But there's covers about everything.
And when I called Delco for Trenton Township and asked them about water to that area, they told me 2035 it's master planned, but because of the Sunbury annexation, that they have revamped the way they're thinking, and that they have plans that will be ready to go to extend water down 37. Those plans will be ready in the next 18 months. And they told me if there were plans to continue development down 37, that they could revamp their plans to get the water along that corridor. So don't rely on a master plan of 2035. Always go to them with potential thoughts of development, because they can realign their plans and alter them to meet those goals.
Anything else, Joe?
No.
Well, I guess, the only thing is that we do have some committee business that I'd like to bring to the intercession, I'll call the roll and go from there. Hang on a second. So the roll call, Cannon.
Yep.
Eisenbrown,
Here.
Larry.
Yep.
Me. Richardson. Molly.
Here.
Jim. Here. So, now that we're back in formal session as a strategic planning committee, not just the presentation.
Bob, turn your mic on.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm assuming so.
I would like to make a few comments and then put a motion on the table. Not everyone here may be aware of personal abuse that some of the members of this committee have had directed at them. It's that sort of abuse is, in my mind, simply unacceptable. Especially for community volunteers who've been working on this project for 2 years, to get that kind of abuse from people who have no sense of what this community is about, no ties to the community, no activities in the community. What's that about? And I think based on that, and in light of that, what has been unrelenting and, in my opinion, unwarranted personal attacks on members of this committee, both in person and through social media, I will make a motion that the Strategic Planning Committee recommend to the Harlan Township Board of Trustees that the trustees disband this committee effective immediately. We'd be out of business.
That's a motion.
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any comments from the committee?
Yeah, well, first, sensing where we're heading, I want to say thanks to Holly and her team, because you guys have been outstanding, and the work that we have gotten done through your getting us going all the way back to the SWOT analysis and getting the start of the quick strategy guide going. You guys have been terrific. We have 3 overlay districts, and that's a start. And they can still be augmented in a few additional areas, which some of those are on the table to be considered. The Center Village overlay can be an opportunity to reshape the central part of the township. And I assume that will probably fall upon the zoning commission to start looking at that in conjunction with Holly to see, because some work has been done in that area. There is a legitimate opportunity through a merger to manage future development. At this point, we are forfeiting the chance to see where this could have led us. Through negotiation, there is no reason to believe this option wasn't valid. I've learned a lot over the last 2 years. I've had a chance to work with great folks on the SPC, as well as residents in the township. We've had some great meetings, and we've actually had some laughs together over 2 years. I've made some mistakes, but always focused on positive actions for the township. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wow. Anybody else?
Following up, Steve, thank you. We appreciate, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The other thing I might want to mention on this, that in those 2 years that we've worked together, that the collective knowledge of this committee is unprecedented. That the people have come together on this committee, all of their various backgrounds, and collectively have accumulated a mass amount of knowledge regarding our community zoning and what's going on around us. And because of a few who insist on attacking, calling us names, that type of thing, this knowledge cannot be accessed in the future unless somebody wants to come forward. It's going to be lost. We've had discussions about that. What a shame that's happened. And with that, it's been great working with you guys, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going down the line. I didn't prepare anything, but I just kind of want to echo, thank you, Holly. It was great working with you and this whole team. Thank you all. I haven't been on the committee since the beginning, but I've been on it about 18 months now, and I have learned a ton, and it makes me really sad to see this day come. I didn't think it would come about in this way. So a little disappointed that we didn't get through quite as many of our goals as we might have hoped, but we've got a lot of things accomplished, a lot of things set up for going forward, however the trustees decide to take it, should they, should this actually move forward.
Thanks, Molly.
And I guess I'll bring up the rear here and say thank you to Holly and Molly. It's been wonderful. I think we've got a lot of good things accomplished. Thank you to the other committee members that have worked tirelessly for the township, and thank you to Carl for your leadership as we move through so many different things. And really, thanks to probably the large silent majority of the township that has been open-minded and wanting to look at all kinds of solutions for the township, and trusting to find out what might be the best option. And it could be a mixture of several, but there are lots of people that I've talked to that are still seeking to find the best opportunity and not so close-minded that they think they have all the answers. So thank you to those community members that have been open-minded and willing to continue to try and find the best situation for Harlem Township.
And I'll bring up the final bit. And I'll just pile on what Bruce and Molly has said. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your guys' hard work and effort. And your knowledge and expertise is unmatched. We're not going to find that again in the township. So thank you for everything you've done. And sorry to see you again.
I'm going to hold my comment over tomorrow night.
Yes, sir.
I won't be voting.
I just want to make one last comment that if anybody thinks this is a victory for them and their plans, I think it's really a loss for everybody. Sure, nobody's.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mike Cannon.
Stan.
Steve Eisenhower.
Disband.
Sorry, Bruce.
Disband.
My vote is for disband. Molly.
Disband.
Jim.
Disband.
Votes taken.
I'm really
I hate so.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Second, favor aye.
Well, I really hate to see this.
Maybe you need to get on this online.
People are a disgrace.
Yeah.